In our last video, we started working on our NPC battle feature, and we focused on updating our JSON files and updating our world scene to trigger these battles. Next for our feature, after a player talks to our NPC and we start processing our battle event, we now need to trigger our battle scene and pass our data to that scene. Currently, in our world scene, we also trigger our battle scene once our player encounters a wild monster. In our handle player movement and encounter zone method, once we figure out which monster we need to show to the player, we start our camera fade out effect, and then we create our data we need to pass to our battle scene, and then we start that phaser scene. So once we talk to our NPC and we're going to trigger our battle, we want to do that same type of logic. So we're going to take this logic here, and we're going to move it to a shared method so we can also trigger that for our NPC battle. So we're going to call this new method start battle scene. For this method, we'll want to pass in any data we need to pass to that scene. So we're going to pass in our data to pass object. And then that way, all we need to do is construct that object and pass it to our method. So let's copy this block of code here. Let's remove it from our handle player movement and encounter zone method. Let's come down to the bottom of our class. We'll add in our new method. We'll have our private method. We'll call it start battle scene. We'll have our one argument, which will be our battle scene data. So let's paste in our code. So now inside our method, we'll want to fade out our camera. We'll want to listen for our fade out complete event. So now we can get rid of our data to pass since we're passing that as an argument. Now we'll update our logic here. So now back where we're processing our NPC events for our battle event, we can now trigger our new method. So I'm going to get rid of our console log. After we have our NPC monsters, now we're going to create our object for our data to pass to our battle scene. So let's do const. We'll do data to pass. This will be an object. So now for our object, I'm going to add in our type. So this will be our battle scene data. So now on our object, we're going to have our enemy monsters. So this will be our NPC monsters array. And now for our player monsters, we want to do our data manager, do our store. We want to use the get method. Now we want to do our data manager store keys and our monsters in our party. That'll give us our array of monsters for our player. And now we're going to add a few additional properties that we'll need in our battle scene. First, we're going to add a flag to know if this is a trainer battle or not. So we'll do is trainer battle. We're going to pass that to be true. And now we're going to add an object called NPC. And this will have our NPC data for the NPC we're about to battle. First, we'll need to know the ID of our NPC. That way, if we defeat our NPC in our battle scene, we can update our data manager. So let's add an ID. We'll do our NPC our player's interacting with. We'll grab our ID property. Next, we'll want to grab our data from our event. So we're going to have our asset key. So this will be our event to handle, our data, our asset key. We'll also want to pass in our trainer name. So we'll have a name property. We'll do our event to handle, our data, trainer name. And now we'll also want to pass in our trainer lost messages. So we'll have our event to handle, our data, our trainer lost messages. So now that we have our data to pass object, we can call our new method. So we're going to call this start battle scene. And let's pass in our object. And now because we're launching our battle scene, let's get rid of our logic here. So now we'll need to update our battle scene data type. So if we jump over to our battle scene, we'll want to add in our new properties. So for our properties, first, we're going to have an optional property called isTrainerBattle. We're going to have a default value of false. This will be a Boolean. Then we'll have our NPC object. This is also optional. And then we'll have our ID, our asset key, our name, and then our array of our trainer lost messages. So now for all the properties in our NPC object, these won't be optional, but our ID will be a number, our asset key, our name will be a string, and our trainer lost messages will be a string array. Alright, so now if we save, let's come back to our world scene. If we talk to our NPC after our first message, our scene should now fade out, and now we should transition to our battle scene. So right away, we should see the first monster that our NPC has, which is our Ignivolt. So if we go into our NPC's JSON file, we'll see we have two monsters. And now if we go into our monsters JSON file, we'll see our first monsters are Ignivolt, and our monster is at level 3. So now for our NPC battles, there's some changes we'll want to do to our battle scene. First, for our battle flow, when we're in an NPC battle, we don't want the monster from the trainer to show up automatically. Instead, we're going to add a brand new state where our trainer is going to appear on a screen, and we'll say the trainer's name wants to battle, and then we'll say that trainer name sent out this monster. So currently, when we talk to our NPC, we grab that first enemy monster, we show it on our screen, and we're showing that it's a wild monster. So we'll need to adjust our text that we're displaying here. After the NPC we are battling has tossed out their monster, we'll then have our monster appear, and then we'll be able to choose what we want to do for our battle. For our battle, we'll want to disable our flee option so we can't run away, and from our items menu, we'll want to prevent the use of capture items. Then finally, we'll need to update our flow at the end of our battle. So currently, once we knock out our enemy monster, we automatically transition to the end of our battle. Now that our enemy can have more than one monster, we'll need to check to see if there's more monsters available, and if so, we'll need to have our enemy bring out that additional monster so we can continue our battle. Only after all of the enemies are defeated, then will we transition to the end of our battle. Once our battle is done, we'll then want to store that we defeated this NPC, then we'll have our NPC reappear and display their messages that they've been defeated. To start with our changes, first we'll work on disabling our flee option and being able to use our capture items. So for our battle scene, first we're going to add a flag to keep track of if this is a trainer battle or not. So I'm going to copy one of our properties from our class, we'll paste it in. For our type we want to be a boolean, and we're going to call this isTrainerBattle. Now if we come down to our init method, where we add in our placeholder data, first we'll add in our property for isTrainerBattle, we'll use a default value of false. For our NPC, we're going to set this to be an undefined object. Next, when we initialize our values, let's update our isTrainerBattle value, and so we'll attempt to grab this from our scene data. So we'll do our scene data, isTrainerBattle. So if that value is undefined or false, we'll use a default value of false. And now to disable our flee option, we'll need to pass that property to our battle menu. So we come down to our create method where we create our battle menu. Let's add in a third argument. So we're going to do this isTrainerBattle. Let's open up our battle menu class. We're going to go into our constructor. Let's add in that argument. And so we'll do isTrainerBattle. We're going to have this be optional, and it'll have a default value of false. Let's copy our type definition. We'll paste this in. So we'll do isTrainerBattle. For our description, we're going to do use to determine if the battle is against a trainer. Let's add that property to our class. So I'm going to copy our last property here. We'll paste it. For our property name, we'll do isTrainerBattle. So down in our constructor, we'll set our value. So we'll do this isTrainerBattle will be equal to our isTrainerBattle argument. So now to disable our flee option. So if we come to our handle player chose main battle option method, inside our if statement where we check to see if our selected option was our flee option, here we'll want to check to see if this is a trainer battle. If it is a trainer battle, we'll want to display a message to the player and make it so they can't choose that option. So let's do if this is a trainer battle, then we'll want to return early. And now before we return, we'll want to display a message to our player. So we'll do this. We'll do our update info pane messages and wait for input method. Now for our array of messages, we're just going to write you can't flee at this time. And now for our callback, we'll just want to show our main battle menu again. So we'll call this and we'll do show main battle menu. So now if we save and we talk to our NPC, we'll start our battle. So then from our battle menu, if we try choosing flee, we should see our message and we should be taken back so we can choose a new option. One other thing we'll do is we're going to make this a little bit opaque, so then that way it looks like it's disabled. So if we come up to our constructor where we create our game objects, after we create our game objects, we're going to do a check to see if this is a trainer battle. So we do if isTrainerBattle, and now to update our opacity, we can use the setAlpha method. We're going to do this. We're going to grab our main battle menu phaser container game object. Now we want to use the getAt method to get an object and an index. And we want to use index 4. And now we can call setAlpha. We're going to set our option to be 0.5. It's now to fix our IntelliSense. We just want to add in our type for our getAt method since this returns a game object. So if we wrap this in parentheses, we'll add in our type. And so for our type, this will be our text game object. So now if we save and we try testing again, now our menu option should appear to be disabled, but if we select it, we see our message. Next, we need to be able to prevent our player from using capture items during our battle with an NPC. Currently in our inventory scene, we have logic in place that prevents us from using our capture items if we're not in our battle scene. We need a way to enhance this logic, so if we're in a battle scene and we're battling an NPC, we also want to prevent the player from being able to choose that option. So one way to do this is we could pass an additional property to our inventory scene to know if this is a trainer battle or not. However, that starts putting additional logic inside our class that's really battle scene specific. A better option would be, once we launch our inventory scene, we can pass an additional property that is an array of item categories that we can't use at this time. What this would look like is when we launch our inventory scene from our world scene, we can then pass in our capture category type, and then before we use our items, we'll see if any of our category types are in that exclusion list. If they are, we'll display our message that says this item cannot be used right now, and then require the player to provide additional input. We can then do the same thing for our battle scene, and only set our capture category when we're in an NPC battle. So for us to add in that logic, let's come to the top of our class. Let's go to our inventory scene data type definition. We're going to add a new property. For this property, it's going to be optional, and we're going to call this item categories that cannot be used. And then for our type, this will be our item category, and we wanted to do an array of those. So now what we can do is back down in our update method. Once our space key is pressed and we're checking to see which item was selected, we can now check the category of that item, and if that category is in our exclusion list, we'll prevent the player from being able to use it. So first, because our property is optional, we'll want to add a safeguard. So we're going to do if our scene data, if our item categories cannot be used, does not equal undefined, and our scene data, our item categories that cannot be used, and if that array includes our selected item and then our category of that item, then we want to prevent the player from being able to use it. So let's copy our code from here where we prevent the player from using our capture item. We'll paste that up here. Since we have this check up here, let's remove this block of code from down here. And now we'll need to update our world scene and our battle scene. So if we come over to our world scene, let's go to where we launch our inventory scene. And now for our scene data to pass, we're going to do our item categories that cannot be used. We'll add in our array. And now we want to do our item category, and we want to prevent using our capture items. Now back in our battle menu, if we go to where we launch our inventory scene, we'll add in our new property. So we'll do our item categories that cannot be used. And now we want to check to see if this is a trainer battle. So if this is a trainer battle, then we want to pass our array with our item category with our capture items. If it's not a trainer battle, then we want to pass an empty array. So now if we want to test our changes, if we go into our world scene, let's go into our bag. If we choose our potion, we should be able to choose a monster. If we choose our damaged ball, we should see our message that we cannot use this item right now. And then we're forced to choose another option. So now let's go into our battle scene. Once our monster appears, let's go to item. If we choose our potion, we can choose a monster. If we go back, if we choose our damaged ball, we should see our message that we can't use our item, and now we have to choose another item. And so now we'll just want to test our flow with a wild monster, so I'm going to come back to our world scene. I'm going to remove our flag where we disable our wild encounters. I'm going to walk around until we encounter a monster. Once our monster appears, let's go to item. We'll do our damaged ball, and now we use our item just like we did before. Nice. Alright, so back in our world scene, I'm going to re-enable our flag so we don't encounter wild monsters. I'm going to go ahead and save. Alright, that's going to wrap up this episode of Monster Tamer. In our next video, we'll continue working on our NPC battle logic, and we'll focus on adding in our logic to handle when our NPC has more than one monster. You can find the completed source code for this video in the description below, along with the links to the full series if you need to catch up. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. It really helps others find the series. And if you've been enjoying these phaser tutorials and want to support the channel, I've set up a Ko-fi page. Even a one-time coffee helps me keep making more content like this, and the link's down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll know as soon as the next episode is out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.